Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fantasy Network. I am of course Jimmy Nuts and we're here today to go over what was a very fun May reading month and wrap up for everything that I read in the month of May, and also my June TBR, which isn't as diverse as I wish it was, but I think it's still going to be a pretty good time, so let's just jump right in. And if you're wondering, no, I'm not regrowing my mustache or anything like that. Don't worry. I know some people are panicking right now in the comments saying, please don't bring back the Cosmere mustache. It's not happening. This is just pure laziness. It'll be gone soon, I promise. So May 2021 was interesting, to say the least. I think it was a little less packed than my April TBR, and I had a good time. I had a really good time. I had a lot of emotions whenever I read through some of the books that I did, and I started out with a book that I actually ended up reading in physical, or I should say on ebook, for the first half of the month, and then switched to audio and kind of just took the whole month to enjoy it, and that was Grievar's Blood by Alexander Darwin. It's the Combat Codes Book 2, and I think I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit right now, because I don't know if I'm going to have an individual review for it here on the channel, but I kind of tweeted about it. I've also put my review up on Goodreads, but Grievar's Blood, being the second entry to the Combat Codes, I thought I knew what to expect when it came to what I was going to get out of the narrative, what characters we would see, but if you've seen my review for Combat Codes Book 1, which I do have on here, and it won my most fun read of 2020, it was a very concise story. I thought there was a lot of mystery and intrigue, and we fought around Saga, which is the main character, and there's other cool side characters brought in, like Murray and such, and Soul, but man, Book 2 was a lot different than I expected. Alexander Darwin took a pretty big risk and expanded the POVs. Like, we jumped way out of Seago's head and into Saul and some other characters that I can't say because of spoilers, but I'm very impressed with what Alexander Darwin was able to do from Book 1 to Book 2. I thought everything from the narrative to the prose was a complete level up for him. And to be honest with you now, I kind of wish that Book 1 would have maybe had a little bit more of this. It feels like Book 1's kind of a prologue now, whereas Grievar's Blood felt like a really expanded, well thought out story. Book 1 was fine, but I think Book 2 is just such an improvement there. And the narrative took a very weird turn. I defined it as martial arts fantasy, and now I feel like it's a little bit more science fiction. There's mechs, there's very odd animals that people ride that I wasn't exactly sure how to describe, but just a lot of weird stuff that came out in Book 2 that I really, really enjoyed. I think the world building got expanded on quite a bit more, and the narrative felt a little bit more on point. And what I mean by that is I felt like Book 1, we were trying to figure out what kind of story we were telling all the way to the end, and then it ended on a very good note. Book 2 felt like, all right, this is the story I want to tell, and I'm going to tell the shit out of it. So Grievar's Blood was a pleasant surprise, and I have to tell you, I think the audiobook is like really, really good. I was surprised, especially whenever it's a self-published book. You're not sure what you're going to get from the audio quality, and Grievar's Blood on audio was excellent. It was pretty cheap also to pick up. I'm definitely going to be reading Book 3. That'll be on the June TBR here, as I'm receiving an advanced reader copy of that. But yeah, Grievar's Blood really surprised me. Alexander Darwin took a big step up, and I'm excited to see what he does in Book 3. If I had one criticism of Book 2 that really stood out to me, I felt like, one, I wish I would have got a little bit more of this in Book 1, so they didn't feel as, I wouldn't say disjointed, but just a little bit more of a consistent narrative from Book 1 to Book 2. But the expansion was really cool, but my big problem with the book was, and I kind of talked to Alexander about this actually, is I feel like it could have been a lot longer. A lot of stuff happens in Grievar's Blood, and a lot of good stuff, in fact. And I felt like some of the relationships that we saw could have been really fleshed out with a little bit more scenes. So I hope in the future, with Book 3 and on, everything Alexander Darwin works on, that he would maybe just take some more time and have some more pages, because I think Grievar's Blood was only like 300 or 350 pages. It could have easily been like a 600-page book. I did immensely enjoy it. I thought it was great, and it's so cool to see an author, especially a self-pub author, level up this much between a Book 1 to a Book 2. The second book that I read in May was also kind of a shorter book, and it was Wind Through the Keyhole, or The Wind Through the Keyhole by Stephen King. It's book 4.5 in the Dark Tower. It's a novella, and essentially it is a story within a story within a story. King does King things, right? I love this. I thought this is definitely in contention for one of the top entries into the Dark Tower series. I wonder how everyone else feels about it. I don't see a lot of people talk about this book when they talk about the Dark Tower in the grand scheme of things. I knew I wanted to read it before I jumped into Book 5, which is Wolves of the Kala, and I think that The Wind Through the Keyhole is definitely worth your time if you're making your way to the Dark Tower. And when I say a story within a story within a story, I basically mean that we have Roland telling a story where the characters then in that story tell another story, and then we go down the rabbit hole and then we come back out. And some people might find that a little too on the nose or maybe a little too weird, but I really, really liked it, and I thought the execution of it was excellent. King at one of his highest peaks for me. And then the remainder of May was me going back into the realm of the Elderlings for the third installment, which is the Tawny Man Trilogy by Robin Hobb. Oh God. When I said May was an emotional month of reading, this is what I was talking about. Farseer, I loved. I thought the third book could have been a bit better, but still overall super attached to the characters. Live Ship Traders Trilogy, in my opinion, is one of the best, just most excellent story arcs, character arc, everything. I mean, everything to the T. It's hard to pick out a lot of flaws, in my opinion, with that from like a technical standpoint. But Tawny Man just hit different. Like I said, I had a big emotional attachment to the characters from the Farseer, and we get to see a lot of them return here in Tawny Man. And I'm not going to go on and on about this because I'm going to do a full trilogy review. I'm not going to do each book separately like I did Live Ships. I'm actually going to combine all three like I did for Farseer. I think as a reviewer, it's easier to do that for myself because I get all my thoughts out in one day. I feel like I forget less when I do them all in one video for some reason, and I can kind of give you my mood and my ebbs and flows as I went through and all the emotions that come with this, because this is an emotional trilogy. If you are an investor, even if you're not, if Farseer was just okay for you, the Tawny Man from a writing standpoint, somehow Hobb leveled up again, which is preposterous. I don't know how she does it. I don't know if she has performance-enhancing drugs that make her so good at characterization and writing, but it's a different look. It's a different look from Hobb with our familiar character cast that continue to grow in ways that are unimaginable. But the pacing of the trilogy, I thought it was the best from the first three. And Fool's Errand specifically is such a tight book that I don't know if you could really... I don't think I could pick apart anything from it that I didn't love. And then the same thing really with book 2 and book 3. I have a lot of feelings about how they stand as a piece of a trilogy, being a middle book and a finale. And I'll get into that all in my review, which should be out, I think, next week. But yeah, Tawny Man is possibly the best trilogy I've ever read. When I think of a trilogy, like I love Farseer, I love Live Ships. There's other trilogies I've read. I've always thought of like a trilogy just by itself, like a first book, a middle book, and a finale. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn comes to mind as the best trilogy I think I've read in recent memory. I'd have to really sit down and analyze and think about this, but Tawny Man immediately becomes a part of the discussion, and I think because of the emotional beats at the end and every single string it hits on, while also just being its own thing, probably makes Tawny Man maybe the best trilogy I've ever read. Maybe I'll make a top trilogies video and really sit down and think about this and take some notes, but the thing that I respect so much about Robin Hobb and what she's doing with Realm of the Elderlings, and I know a lot of you probably haven't dove in because it seems very intimidating, but like when we talk about the greats, we talk about like Wheel of Time, A Song of Ice and Fire, Malazan, all these book series, right? Discworld, Lord of the Rings, clearly. I feel like it's kind of criminal. It's criminal not to include Realm of the Elderlings. It is such a massive series, and to get payoffs from literal word choice and decisions that characters make, paying off thousands of pages later, and then just the way that Hobb has crafted her story, I think it's just immaculate. I don't know if there's anyone that's ever done it this well. And that's not something I say lightly. I really have fallen in love with Robin Hobb's writing in the Realm of the Elderlings, and I love the fact that Robin Hobb has just done something different. And when I say that, I mean, this is not like Tolkien derivative, at least not in any way that's very obvious to me. I'm sure people could point out things to me and tell me how wrong I am, but even with Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn being one of my favorite trilogies, it is obviously a derivative of Tolkien, and I think it's the best one. But Robin Hobb, especially in the time she published, she did something totally different. She went into her own story and then just crafted this beautiful world with an amazing magic system that ranks in probably the top 2 I've ever read. And it's just really special. And I think Tawny Man encapsulates all the things Robin Hobb does so well. And it's just a neat package with a good pace, amazing characterization. And you should really read it. And I'm going to stop now or I won't have anything to say in my review. No, I have a lot more to say. So just tune out for that next week. No, don't tune out. Tune in next week for that. And that's really it. I've been reading a little bit of Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin, but that's kind of a side thing, and I'll have more about that information later in the year. Maybe possibly a Fire and Blood read-along before House of the Dragon pops out from HBO. We'll see. We could talk about that later down the road. Let's get into what I'm going to read in June. And I said that I kind of wish I had a little bit more diversity in the month of June, but it's just because I've been reading Dark Tower and Realm of the Elderlings, which are 2 pretty big series, and it feels like a lot of my TBRs are just packed with that, which is fine, but I am ready. I'm excited to get to some other stuff later in the future. But this month, we are continuing that journey. But one book that is not one of those 2 series is Blacklight Born, book 3 in the combat codes. I've actually been able to get an advanced reader copy of this. This is something that I'm not really accepting any arcs right now, but this is something I agreed to a couple months back, and I'm happy to do it because the combat codes has been a delight to read. Book 1 was fun. Book 2 got really good, and I'm excited to see how Alexander Darwin's going to cap off this trilogy. The cover art's not out yet, but stay tuned for that if you know what I mean. Maybe we do some sort of reveal at some point, but I'm excited for it. I'm really excited to dive into book 3. Alexander Darwin really leveled up in book 2 over book 1, like I mentioned earlier, and I find that I assume that book 3 will probably be along the same lines. Blacklight Born's probably something I'm going to get towards the end of the month because I really want to tackle my next book on my TBR for June, which is Wolves of the Kala by Stephen King. It's book 5 in the Dark Tower. I'm excited. I love the cover art of this book so much. I don't know why, but if you look at it first, you're just like, oh, it's just like some horses and people on them or whatever. No, it appears to be robotic horses which look like werewolves holding lightsabers. So that pretty much wraps up the Dark Tower and what it's all about, which is just anything and everything in Stephen King's imagination, which is a lot. I'm pumped to get back to a full-scale novel. It's like 700, 800 pages. It's one of the longer ones in the Dark Tower series. I love where we ended off in book 4, and then book 4.5 was just a nice little treat, a little cherry on top, and now we're getting back into the main installments. I think I'll be able to get this done. I don't know if I'll get the Song of Susanna. If I finish Wolves of the Kala early, I will start Song of Susanna, but officially, we'll just say book 5 for this month in the Dark Tower. And then you probably guessed, I'm going to continue my journey through Realm of the Elderlings with Rob and Hobb with the now 4th installment. This is the one before the last, which is crazy that this is going by so quickly. But I'm going to be doing the Rain Wild Chronicles, which is a quartet. I've heard mixed things about this. I'm going in with expectations kind of lowered. I don't think anyone could end a trilogy as well as Rahab ended Tawny Man. So I obviously have to kind of bump down my expectations for this. But I want to say that even though a lot of people say this is the worst of the Realm of the Elderlings, and some people love it, I've actually had a couple commenters, and you're out there probably watching this right now, that said it's their favorite. Had people in the live ship spoil their discussion say that, which if you haven't checked that out, go check that out on the channel with Chris, Bookish Cauldron, and Jake Bishop. It's here as a VOD. It was an amazing live stream, learned some stuff, and I got to give my full spoiler thoughts on that, which was a lot of fun. But we had people commenting saying, yo, Rain Wild Chronicles is actually my favorite. And Chris even said that he has a friend who's a booktuber who ended up starting with Rain Wild Chronicles for some reason and loves it. So I don't know. My expectations are a bit mixed, but I feel good going into it. And I'm excited to get back to the Rain Wilds because it's one of my favorite settings in all of fantasy. I think it's really interesting, which is hilarious because when I started Live Ship, which is based in the same area, I was really turned off at the fact that it was nautical fantasy. And now look at me being excited to go back. Robin Hobb just continues to destroy all my biases against like things like first-person perspective, nautical fantasy. It's because she's just one of the best ever to do it. And I've grown as a reader because of it, and I think Rain Wild Chronicles is going to be a fun experience. So that's 4 books, and then you got the Dark Tower book, and then Blacklight Born from Alexander Darwin, book 3 in the combat code. So it's 5, no, that's 6. 4 plus 2 is 6, in fact. So I have 6 books to read. I'm probably going to be also maybe dabbling in some other stuff if I have time. But we'll see, and I'll save that for my wrap-up at the end of June when I talk to you all again like this. It's going to be an exciting month. We'll be doing a Tawny Man live stream at some point this month. Like I said, that review will probably be out next week. And I will have a full spoiler discussion in the coming weeks for that as well here in June. It's exciting. I can't believe that I'm getting towards the end of Dark Tower and Realm of the Elderlings. There's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon, such as Red Rising, Malazan, the Prince of Nothing trilogy, and 5 War Angels by Brian Lee Durfee. Those are all things I want to get to. I'm probably going to put out a video of what I plan to read for the second half of the year because something did fall off of my must-read for 2021 video that I made at the beginning of the year, and I need to talk about why and also what I plan to replace it with. So be on the lookout for that, and I'm just excited to be here. I feel rejuvenated. I don't know. I've never really felt down, I guess, on this channel, but the excitement continues to build as I progress and become more and more well-read and make more friends through the comments. So get down in the comments. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you've read anything that I've read and what you thought of it, without spoilers, of course. And thank you. Thank you for spending your time with me and listening to my TBR, my wrap-up, and all of that. And I always appreciate you all just tuning in to hang out and to hear what I have to say. So I hope you're well. I hope you're good. And until next time, remember to always keep turning the page.